Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namasami. Welcome, dear friends, to this Tuesday night program at Dhamma-Dharini. We'll be having about a half hour of meditation and then a bit of a sutta conversation. Just before this, the conversation was turning towards death and dying, and what we can do to prepare for that. So I think afterwards we may go take a look at the 5 things to be reflected upon always. And for our meditation, let us aim for tranquil meditation, bringing a certain amount of urgency to the practice. We have no idea how much time will be left that we are still able to practice meditation. So there isn't really any day or any minute that ought to be wasted. We should try to bring up enough energy and enough confidence in the teachings of the Buddha to at least make the effort to follow along with these simple meditation procedures that are offered to us. So let us go straight into meditation by coming to an upright and balanced meditation posture, whether sitting on a chair or on the cushion with crossed legs. If we're well enough to do so, keeping the back upright and balanced, not slouched. Aware of how the hands are arranged on the lap. Sometimes we put the hands side by side with the thumbs gently touching. And then it's good for mindfulness, because if you start to fall asleep, your hands may move, and that will help you remember to come back to being mindful. Other people keep their hands resting on their knees, or like in a posture like this on the knees, or just in a relaxed posture on the lap. So consciously placing the hands, consciously organizing how the legs and feet are arranged. Letting go of any thinking or agitation or excitement that we might have had before arriving here. And undertaking to give up planning and worrying about the future just for this 1 hour. Our only purpose now is to place our awareness onto the object of meditation, and then to be fully aware of what's going on. Whether we can perfectly sustain that awareness of a meditation object, or whether the awareness is not so steady and slipping away and coming back, slipping away and coming back. Whatever happens during the meditation, it's just because of causes and conditions. This is not the time for blame. This is just the time to see what's really going on, just to notice how it is. Without letting go of that posture that we've established, relaxing the body, letting the face relax, the shoulders drop, the arms at rest, the belly soft. Feeling the weight of the body, pressing the chair or the cushion, allowing the legs and feet to be resting. Aware of any sensation that arises. Waking up our awareness to be tuned in and sensitive to each sensation, each moment of contact arising with the senses, mostly touch, but can be any of the senses. Aware of the sensation of breathing. Right at the nostrils or at the lip. aiming to be continuously awake and aware, using the sensations to stay in the here and now. Keeping awareness connected. Where is the mind? If the mind is very well settled, can just focus on breath. If the mind is more scattered, open up the field of awareness to include all the senses and let that help you to stay in the here and now. Dear friends, I think some of us are still reflecting on the 5 nutriments of life that we studied this past weekend. And I know that at least a couple of us have signed up to come to a day-long in honor of the new moon, Uposita. The day-long is this coming Saturday. It's on the email letter that we sent out as well as on our website. There was a reflection that Maureen had mentioned during our discussions this last weekend, the reflection of the 5 things to be remembered always. And I thought it might be useful to consider that teaching and how we may use that teaching in our practice. Five things have been well taught by the Sublime One, the one who knows and sees. The Worthy One, perfectly enlightened by himself. These are subjects always to be reflected upon by women or men, householders, or those who have gone forth. What are the 5? I am of the nature to decay. I have not gone beyond decay, is always to be reflected upon. I am of the nature to be diseased. I have not gone beyond disease, is always to be reflected upon. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death, is always to be reflected upon. All that is mine, dear and delightful, will change and vanish, is always to be reflected upon. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, whether good or evil, of that I shall be the heir, is always to be reflected upon. So, dear friends, while we are going through our ordinary life, especially if we still have important work that we've undertaken to do or that we've chosen to do, work in this world, if we have important relationships with our children and with our parents or with our spouses or with others in our family or those in our chosen family or dearest friends. If we are the owners of property and we're involved in taking care and making a lot of choices about how to use our money and how to decide what kind of things to buy and how we shall take care of our property. All of these perfectly ordinary, normal, and can be skillful activities of life do have the tendency to stir up craving and clinging. And that word that is called clinging means trying to hold on to something which is very ephemeral and ever-changing, something that doesn't have a pure essence that we can keep forever and make the base for our happiness, but instead something that's really just a moment in the ever-flowing stream of changing causes and conditions, changing circumstances which presents to ourselves. But we nevertheless, we try to cling to them. It's completely natural. And by clinging to these things, we make them to be a part of ourself. It's like if I put on this monastic robe, and it could be possible, if I'm not wise, that in my own mind I would be thinking that this monastic robe is a part of myself. And in that kind of way, we are taking up certain identities. We identify ourselves by our occupation or by our relationships or by any number of things. So when we are not yet there as far as letting go of all conditioned things, it's possible to moderate the danger of clinging to the things that we encounter by bringing up, learning, listening to a different set of concepts, a different way of looking at our reality. So that when we have an experience, say this is my child, and I feel so happy and proud when my child is accomplishing something or doing something good. I feel so distressed and embarrassed if my child is acting badly. Because this is all this emotional reactions are happening because of my identification with my child. You wouldn't necessarily react the same way if it was somebody else's child, not your child. So there can be so many reactions, and it's well known that a skillful way to get out of emotional reactivity is to reframe how one views the experience. So these ideas, these teachings that are offered by the Buddha, and there's more than 5, there's many sets of different kinds of teachings that are offered, they can be used as a way of reframing how we look, how we perceive what's going on. And then with that reframing of our perceptions, we may then be able to get out of our unskillful emotional reactions, have a more balanced I don't want to say objective, because objectivity could be some other posture that people take. If I say, I want to be a scientist, I'm going to be completely objective about things. And actually, we're not being objective, we're really just being biased in a different way, but we say we're being objective. Instead, I would say, perhaps from an equanimous standpoint, to look with clarity, with compassion, and with kindness to whatever we have in the situation that we find ourselves in. So then, by undertaking these kind of teachings, these things to be reflected upon, one might first do like an investigation. So if it says, I'm of the nature to decay, well, ask yourself, is that really true? What if I take very good care of my body and get a lot of exercise, and I only use the very pure and nutritious organic food? I might even like be very careful to limit the amount of food that I use, and follow all the medical advice. I might even find some different kinds of medicines to take that will extend the period of health. I could even get a facelift or a tummy tuck or some kind of a surgery to offset some of the features of the aging body. And could I say, well, if I did all of these things, could I finally say that, well, the body is not really of the nature to decay? See, I don't think so. So we can actually look and find out if it's true or not. And then if we can convince ourselves that through like reasoning that these things are true, then it may nevertheless be that even though like at some level I know that I'm of the nature to decay, but then at another level I'm not willing to believe that. And so then if I notice that more wrinkles that I didn't have before, or if I notice some difficulty with the eyes that I didn't have before, difficulty with the ears that I didn't have before, one could go into a state of being depressed or sad or grieving, because actually you were clinging to this thought that the body was always going to be young. Even though you thought rationally, you thought you knew the body was going to decay, but nevertheless at some more subconscious level you were still clinging to it. And so then if you acknowledge that and you want to sort of like clean out this false view that the body is forever, just for example, then you may become even more strongly mindful and really look and really see how it's going on with our experience, what the body is really like. Look more closely, observe it more closely, be more mindful, more conscious. And then we may find that very often we can notice things related to this body's the nature to decay. And then when we notice it more and more often, then that perception can be developed until it becomes almost like a continuous contemplation. And if that truth becomes a continuous contemplation, then it could happen that there's some kind of a breakthrough where the distress that we experienced before when we were resisting this reality breaks up, and we are beyond getting distressed about the decay of the body. And that's the moment where we really can know a new freedom. So in this way, this is my idea. It's very simple about how this contemplation about the five things to be reflected upon again and again could be developed, investigated, tested against our experience, and used as a tool to kind of get underneath the more subtle kinds of clinging to delusions, which are causing that resistance and causing that suffering, causing that emotional distress. And then it can be then that we can get truly beyond emotional distress about these realities. So with that brief reflection, I would be willing to invite anybody's comment or report about how these reflections have been useful to you. I'll bring them up one more time so that if you're not familiar with them, you can come to memorize them and learn them. If you want to look it up, I put in the chat. It's in the Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 3.71. Dhammas to be reflected upon always. I'm of the nature to decay. I have not gone beyond decay. I am of the nature to be diseased. I have not gone beyond disease. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. All that is mine, dear and delightful, will change and vanish. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, whether good or evil, of that I should be the heir, is always to be reflected upon. I'm going to paste this Pali here because sometimes when you're trying to look something up in the Google, when you look it up in English, you know, there's so many different translations. You're not sure you're going to find them all. But if you looked them up in Pali, you might get some different Dhamma talks or Dhamma teachings. So there are many beautiful talks by Dhamma teachers about this particular lesson. It's a very universal, very helpful. So if anybody has anything to ask or to comment, you're welcome to put your hand up. Okay, Nikolai, would you mind coming here and talking to the microphone?
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to first of all say that the death contemplation is absolutely by far my favorite one, and it used to make me feel a little anxious, but now every time and more I think about it, it actually gives me so much peace, and it's so even pleasant. Like, it gives me so much peace. And I was just thinking today about some time ago I went just for death contemplation in a local cemetery, just walking around, just looking at the graves, and it was an interesting experience. But today I thought, wow, how interesting. While we alive, I can be so offended by somebody. It's somebody did something very bad to me, and we have a conflict, and like we get in a fight, and we hate each other, and we don't talk to each other, or we yell at each other. But at some point, we can be end up laying literally in the same cemetery, like almost next to each other quietly, And I was thinking, how interesting if you actually think ahead and you actually know this is what's gonna happen. We're literally gonna end up on the same ground, not that far away from each other. So why we cannot do like be quiet and peaceful while we're alive? So it's like such a great equalizer. These contemplations, this thought, it's whatever going on in my mind right now. It doesn't matter how big it is. It's just gonna be gone, and it's totally pointless because we all gonna end up there, in the ground, quiet, with no conflicts, nothing, just laying there next to each other. So it's I just would like to share that that contemplation is actually visualizing myself, and is my grave. And I told in Rania Body, I had this dream. In the dream, I saw my gravestone. It was so vivid, so beautiful. And I woke up. It was amazing. It was the most beautiful and profound dream in 41 years of my life, literally. Just I saw my gravestone with my face in it. It was so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Damon.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate the gentleman's reflection as well. Now, you suggested that we could even go more than frequent contemplation. You termed it continuous contemplation. So that's I would like to be able to do that, but what would it mean actually, practically speaking, to be able to continuously contemplate, even the one about the first one about decay?
Well, so in as we go through life, we are encountering, many like moments of encountering all different kinds of objects in our life. So we're not just spending, day and night looking at the words of the text and having the words of the text be the object, but instead, all of the different things that we experience, we see them decaying, or we see ourselves decaying in relation to all the things that are happening. So, like if I see, one time we were having a planning meeting about the future of our monastery, and the facilitator asked each one to envision what the monastery would be like at some time in the future. And one of the monastics, Bhikkhuni Suvajana, answered, she visualized it decaying and turning to dust and ashes in the future. And so, and it's like, so that's the way. It's like whatever you look at, you can see that it's in the process of decay. Yeah. Okay. Is that enough? Okay. I'll call on Richard.
Well, thank you. This, you have Anguttara Nikaya 371.
Um,
I
I think,
found it in 557. It's five things, right? Old
You know what?
age.
I think the citation that I copied was volume 3,
Yeah.
page 71. So I'm going to correct that.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's what's the correct citation?
Well, the sutta is, I believe it's the Book of Fives, 5, and it's Sutta 57. Because it's five things, right? I just wanted, because I
Right,
was
thank you.
confused when I started keeping this, because usually if you look at 3, that's 3 things, right? And I'm looking, I couldn't find it. So I started, since you put the name up, I did a search online on the name, and I got to this
Right.
section.
Thank you.
Other than that, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The gentleman that was speaking earlier, we was talking about we're all might be laying together in the same graveyard. Reminds me of the when the Buddha talks about the 4 elements, right? And like if someone, if someone throws some trash or something filthy, whatever, in the earth doesn't complain or say anything, right? Well, this body is of the same, quality, has the same quality as earth. Or if someone throws something in the water, like garbage, whatever, right? It doesn't complain or anything because, and this body also has, that liquidity, that, water type nature, etc., and for the other elements as well. Anyways, that's just as he was giving that description, talking about laying in the same graveyard. It reminded me of that. Anyways, other than that, I didn't really have too much to say. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Sheila.
Hello, good evening, everyone. What comes to mind is I reflect on the 5 recollections pretty frequently, and how it's helped me is particularly around the first recollection. I'm of the nature to age. So if I injure myself, I fell a couple of weeks ago, took a pretty good hit. And even in my recovery and just going through the pain and quote misery of having an injured body and healing, I reflected and continued during that period of time to think about I am of the nature to age, and just know, and and also I am of the nature to become ill. And that really helped me put things in perspective and not get engrossed with why did it happen, poor me, and just go around in that cycle of, unnecessary suffering. So that's a way. And also, I have, in conversations with friends and family, will frequently include one of the recollections as part of a conversation, just to say, and I am much more comfortable mentioning death or speaking about death or any of the nature of these recollections, that of the impermanence and non-self. And that's how the recollections have helped me really become much more available for letting go and identifying things and even people, circumstances that just no longer serve me. So that's how the 5 recollections, what they do for me and how I'm able to use them in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Maureen. Unmute yourself. Unmute. No, push it again. There.
Oh,
Okay.
hang on. Yes,
There
there
you
we
go.
that's how I've been helped by these recollections. But I would add also that the fifth one, it kind of embeds you in society. Owner of your karma, that's the beginning with you, and then you're heir, and you're related, you're born, you're related, you're supported. And that's what makes me think that karma has a social impact. It's not just you personally inherit your karma, but I'm not saying this very well, but you're contributing to society, and society contributes to how you we all of us add that bit to society. Our karma becomes passed on in society. The Buddha's karma has passed on to with his teachings. It's like a heritage that passes on. Also, it's the impermanence of us as individuals. But that's where that continuity for me happens. But I've not said this very well because I haven't thought it through properly yet. So
Thank you. I have a similar idea about that reflection. I've had it for a long time. There's quite a similar verse in the Dhammapada, which is saying something to the effect of that one's good deeds would be similar to when a person goes on a long journey, and then when they return from their trip, that their relatives would run out to greet them. And it's like this, that the deeds that we do when we have journeyed across the lives and come into our next lifetime, that our good deeds sort of come back to greet us like our long-lost relatives. I have got an idea that it's a little bit of a puzzle, because we say, this is not me, not mine, not myself, about all conditioned things. We're taught this very strongly. And yet, here is this saying, which is saying, I am the owner of my karma. So how can both things be true? Because karma is definitely conditioned. And then we say, if it's not me, not mine, not myself, and yet we say, I'm the owner of my karma. The different expressions have a very strong family context. When you say born of my karma, that it, the word has the root meaning yoniso, which means the mother's womb. So it's really saying karma is the mother. And the one that says related to my karma, that word also has like secondary meanings in Pali, that it's talking about your actual relatives. And when it says I'm protected by my karma, that word in Pali has got a root meaning, which is those relatives, particularly the male relative who has the responsibility to protect you. So it's drawing this metaphor, and it's in a context, I think, where most people would be like, the family you're born into is also like going to be determining your livelihood and your status and the kind of social position and the amount of wealth you have, and all of these things are like inherited from your family and then passed down again beyond if you don't lose them. So my idea is that this sutta is saying your family is not your real inheritance. because your karma is your real inheritance. Karma is like in a parallel to the inheritance that you think you have from your family, but it's given as a metaphor in a way of saying that one does have a much closer, more significant, more tremendously important connection with the karma and the results of the karma to a much greater extent than any kind of materialistic heritage. So I should not be afraid that I'm going to lose my health insurance, or I'm going to lose my house, I'm going to lose, this thing or that thing. But if I had like a possibility that I could lose what's been gained by my previous karma, if I should do some powerful, unwholesome, negative karma and lose what I've gained before, I should really be afraid of that. So I should be afraid of committing a negative karma or unskillful karma because of really being having that dread of inheriting those kind of results. So that's my my idea about the why this particular metaphor is used. And now I've gotten Richard interested in saying a bit more. Richard?
Thank you. Buddha famously said, it's Chaitanya, volition, that I call karma. So what's happening is, due to avidya, ignorance, or as I prefer to say, incomplete knowledge, you keep taking birth over and over again. And every time you take birth, okay, now you're subject to old age, disease, and death, and so you're by your Chaitanya, your volition to keep doing this thing over and over again. Now you have to go through it, and this deals with the famous topic of why do good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. It's because the world, Dhamma, what I like to call objective reality, is too complex. So once you've chosen to come in here, okay, maybe you came in as, let's say, Bill Gates' child or something, right? The heir possibly, of course, maybe he's not a good example because he's already said he's going to limit his inheritance to his children. But the heir possibly to hundreds of billions of dollars or something, right? But you may have a birth defect or something in childhood, or you may get a disease and not even survive long, as a child, or you might have to go through different things, or maybe Bill Gates, just as you're taking birth that night, the stock market collapses and he loses all his wealth. The world is just way too chaotic. That's why the Buddha said that you cannot understand. There's no way to really figure out exactly. A person would go mad, if they tried to figure out exactly what was going to happen. The course of karma. It's just too complicated. So once you come in here, it's too complicated. You got to go through old age, disease, and death. You got to be separated from things you like, etc. He gives definition of dukkha, and it's just it's not worth it. Really, is what he's saying. Why have that volition? Why not see Dhamma, objective reality, as it is, understand the rules, how it works, and say, okay, this isn't worth it. And like transcend, go beyond those limitations. That's why eventually you get to Cheto Vimukti, the mind is liberated, okay? It's no longer bound by anything. So anyways, that's what comes to mind when I read this about, you know, the owner of your karma, the inheritor, you know, it's your relatives, all those things, right? And that's what, you know, that famous line, it's my story and I'm sticking to it. It's kind of like that. Anyways,
Okay.
anyway, thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, this may be enough for tonight. Thank you very much for that. And we can go ahead and give our closing respects to the Triple Gem. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. The teachings so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Thank you, everyone, for your practice and for your patient listening.